Welcome to Cmd Ctrl Pwr, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. For over 10 years, we've produced weekly episodes featuring epic tales of tech support and troubleshooting, discussions about managing our clients and businesses, and interviews with colleagues and vendors. For our pro listeners, we offer Patreon-exclusive shows. This private podcast feed is tailor-made for IT professionals looking for advice and guidance on the more challenging aspects of running your practice, working with your clients and employees, and managing your fleets of devices. For a modest monthly contribution, you'll unlock a world of deeper Apple expertise, meaningful connections, and a shared passion for Apple technology. Simply visit cmdctrlpwr.com and click support. And now on to the show. Welcome back to Cmd Ctrl Pwr. Once again, Jason Dettbarn, founder and CEO of Addigy, longtime guest. Thank you so much, Jason, for being back here. Welcome.
It's awesome to see you guys. Everybody's looking great. It's been too long.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was looking through some of our previous episodes. Listeners can go to cmdctrlpwr.com and search for your name, and they'll see it's got to be over 10 episodes. I mean, you have to, I think you hold the heavyweight champion belt of Cmd Ctrl Pwr frequent guest, whatever
it's like
that is.
SNL host, like Tom Hanks at SNL,
That's right. So yeah, exactly. You are Tom Hanks. So thanks for being back here, Jason.
Well, it's your support too, guys. Like I think I was probably maybe one or two employees in the company when we first met and maybe recorded one of the sessions.
Wow.
So it's been a journey.
It's been a journey. I mean, we've been at this for a little over 10 years. I think it's about 10 years for you this year. So, I mean, really parallel journeys, and yours has had a much more ascendant streak. Ours is, kind of going along, and people are enjoying what we do, but not like they're enjoying Addigy.
Listen, man.
Killing it, man.
So on my 10-year note, I quit my job. It was almost 10 years ago, right? Like you said, just shy of it now. And I had a second child on the way. Figured this was the perfect time to start a gig. And I didn't pay myself for 2 years. I wasn't independently wealthy at all, guys.
Wow.
It was a grind. It was hard work at the beginning and sacrifice for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks for staying strong through all of that, because on the other end of it here, we're all enjoying the fruits of your labor with Addigy. It's just been an incredible product to have. We were talking before we started about just MDM. I don't know if it was on my radar 14 years ago, but that's when it came out. I remember there was an Apple training event, and it was, you can learn about MDM. I guess that's a thing I should do, and like practicing.
So
with
Mac Helpmate didn't get you there, Joe?
Exactly. I needed a replacement for Mac Helpmate. And so, I mean, MDM was like the new hotness at that time. And it took me a few years. I mean, really my introduction to MDM came with Addigy. I mean, it was in the early days, I think Addigy, you had the agent only method. You didn't even need MDM because that's how new MDM was. And so it took me even probably a year or so to really go full on with MDM. And maybe we'll get into this a little bit later, but here we are now with DDM, Declarative Device Management. So kind of a whole new philosophy and framework. But yeah, do you want to give listeners a little bit more of an overview about the early days, the journey, take us up to where we are today with Addigy?
Yeah, so to your point, it was an agent-only world that we lived in for Macs. Mobile was MDM, but none of us in the overall market, at least on the ACN side, MSP, et cetera, we weren't really managing mobile devices back then. It was there, but it wasn't really necessary like it was maybe corporate environments. So you only had the agent, and then MDM started to become a requirement where we had to have MDM on the device to start doing things. So those early days, we recall a little nostalgia. We get Apple Remote Desktop ARD, which people don't. You could do a lot with it. You could actually just choose a scripted command and run it across all devices all at one time. You configurator, which got a long ways down a path. I think a lot of the Apple tools, we all stretched to their limits, and really made the most of what we could with it. And even imaging, like it wasn't that long ago, guys, that we were actually still imaging Macs. And then you had DEP and Apple ABM, Apple Business Manager, that really sort of bootstrap the device and do those things. So, in that regard, you have to make sure the product continues to evolve. I remember when we were agent only, when we started implementing MDM, we thought, do we make a separate portal for MDM? As a lot of people did, because that was where you were going to orchestrate your mobile devices. No, they all had to be first-class citizens. Everybody's part of that platform.
Right.
And making those choices early on to hopefully get it right.
Yeah. But, well, here I am a little bit late to the game on managing iOS devices. I mean, I've done it for years, but really just dabbling. But I'm realizing lately that it's a value add to our clients, and it lets us make more money because, I mean, a lot of those casual like BYOD kind of devices are just skating by. You just kind of let them be, and you don't do too much with them in some cases. But you can make the case when you can manage a device using the tool you already have, using Addigy. You can enroll it using automated device enrollment or user-based enrollment. And you can then offer a suite of tools on top of what they already have. So you can deploy apps, you can deploy updates, you can otherwise track and manage devices. You can manage them even including a kiosk mode for a TV, for example. So that's some of our really common use cases is when a store or an installation or something like that has an Apple TV connected to a display or a projector or whatever it is. And, you want to be able to ensure that it's not going to pop up some home sharing thing or somebody's personal Apple ID or all this like random stuff in a public setting like that. You can really manage it. And it's very easy to do once you practice it. And Addigy is a tool I've used to do that. And it just makes it really simple. And because I knew how to do things like create a configuration profile or whatever on the Mac, now I'm able to do that with iOS. So it's really like an easy stepping stone, and I'm surprised I didn't get into it earlier. But yeah, you're right. That's where the whole thing originated was with iOS MDM. Yeah.
Yeah. Where we're seeing the changes, like you can't, users are worried that when we start managing the devices, we see everything, right? I think Apple slowly, compared to Android and everybody else, built that privacy brand where people feel a little more comfortable. Where we're really going to see this change a lot more, they are pushing, like no tomorrow, managed Apple IDs. Mm-hmm. And so if you actually think about the use of a managed Apple ID at a company level, and then everything you can do personally on the device, they're trying to provide this segregation on the device where you have company apps, company data, and personal separated. So if there's changes within my employment or anything else I do there too, it's just that one segment of corporate apps and corporate data that I'm able to wipe out, and I don't wipe out the device. I think it's still going to take, for a number of reasons, a couple of years to get there to where we're all really confident in this segregation. But that's where we have the proper, because BYOD is not really BYOD in my opinion. Right. The BYOD components we've got today, it's now we've got to segregate the usage on the device. So,
right. Yeah. That's interesting. Sam, you've probably had the most experience with that of all of us. I mean, you to the point where you, I think, like had to retire a phone number at one point from spinning up so many test accounts and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, would you want to tell us about your experience? Because this is an area I need to get into also myself.
That's so funny. Yeah, that bit me. Jason, I don't know if you know, but like basically I was using my phone number so much for test Apple IDs over the years or classes or whatever that I hit that limit from Apple. And they're like, you can't use this anymore. I even called support and they were just like, I remember the support person going, I've never seen this many attached to one phone number before. So, yeah, that's me.
There's hard limits.
Yeah. Sure. But I think, speaking of Joe's point about managed Apple IDs and stuff like that, I think I can see that push being there because that creating that separation of data on the volume. But I think also there's a challenge there too, which is maybe to your point of it like not being not 100% ready yet, right? But one of the things that I run into a challenge of, and this is just Apple's limitation on MDM, is if you're allowing someone to enter an Apple ID into that field, it can be any Apple ID. So like if you're letting a user set up a device, an iOS device, let's say, there's nothing telling them that they have to use this particular domain. So if Apple can try and, create some level of additional restrictions there, I think then you could allow, because you can't really hand off a device at that point if you need to require them to put in a certain domain. But,
no, it's really hard. It's really hard because that's part of what I meant when we say, a couple of years. One of them is the developing the apps and such that really honor both. Yeah. But the bigger problem right now is somebody uses, let's say, one of my employees uses an Addigy.com email account for one, and then I now federate it in Apple Business Manager for managed Apple IDs. Everything now with that domain has to be then within there. Well, I already have a leak in the boat. There's already a few people that have it, And so it's very challenging. That's why, if people can do it early on and they feel comfortable with it, great, but it's still a very challenging transition.
Yeah.
And so I'm not endorsing it overall right now. I'm just saying that's very clearly where the hockey puck is going.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Little Gretzky comment there, right? Yeah. So, I would agree 100%. I just had this conversation earlier today with a client, and there's just, no great answer we can give them in terms of what Apple has down the road. But the hope is that MDM would help you to be able to structure that so you can truly hand off a device and know that they'll put in the right Apple ID.
Exactly.
It's interesting, but I think with Addigy being at the forefront of this, it's very. I mean, I'm sure you're always like in the know more so than we all are about a lot of this stuff. But it'd be interesting to see what will come down the pike, and
a lot of it needs to be fully production ready, right? Like File Vault used to be something we did at the command line level with the agent. It was very robust, that methodology. Same with patching. It was very robust on the command line, and it had to be done through MDM. So that one we didn't have much choice over. Most of them we can, like File Vault, we just switched under the hood without people needing to know which one we're doing. Once we knew that was becoming pretty reliable. So we try to abstract away a lot of the noise for people, so they don't have to deal with a lot of the transitions that happen like that. So TBD, we'll stay tuned on the managed Apple ID ones. We'll see how that one works out. But OS patching is definitely one where that's been an evolving area. I don't know if you guys have kept up a whole lot what we've done there too. This is actually an interesting story most people don't know. Is when you have a problem with the patching, the OS patching, as we all had for literally 2 years now. Yeah. Who do you go to and blame? You blame your vendor. My vendor should be making this work. Yeah. So we were having challenges overall. Everybody was. They were like switching to vendors because they thought, my vendor is not working well with this. And so I finally told my engineering team, we got to figure this out. We got to figure this out big time. So basically, Apple has a binary called MDM client. That's what phones home to MDM. And we would look to our infrastructure, and there was a large percentage that just never hadn't phoned home for a while, unless they restarted. Like some of them hadn't phoned home in 6 months over MDM. This means everything, not just patching, configurations, everything's like locked up. So we figured out a way to detect when these things happen. And dynamically, if we're checking in properly through Addigy platform, we would just reboot that thing and restart elegantly the patch utilities, and it worked flawlessly. Like we got everybody up to like 98% full compliancy. And we decided, like, we've got to really make this available for everyone. This is not something that just, like, patching is pretty fundamental. Yeah. So we made what we call Watchdog available for everyone to download and use for free. And it was heavily leveraged. First of all, I only expected it to be out there for probably 3 months because they were going to fix the bug. It took a lot longer. But that was recently just changed and taken away. And DDM patching is working. Declarative Device Management patching is working really, really well. So sort of, again, that's been obfuscated under the hood and made sure it's the way we've implemented, I think, is beyond what most people have done with the deferments. I'm able to talk about that, but that's a big change because you got a balancing act you got to do. How do I make sure that I'm not disrupting my end users? They're able to deliver productivity and everything they're doing, yet I'm maintaining the compliances I need for patching for my organization and my customers. The only way you can do that is by having an elegant deferment process that has thresholds and deadlines to them. Yeah, and you're able to maintain both. You're not bugging the user, and you're getting that point of like, okay, time's up.
It more so like you're bugging them just the right amount. It's like, how much bugging can they tolerate, or are they willing? They want to be bugged because they don't want it to fall out of compliance. They don't want to have to update. I don't care that you have a call right now. It has to happen. You want to bug them enough before that happens, but not so much that they're going to want you to take your software off of their system or whatever. So this is the balance. It's that, and it's also just user communication in general. How do you actually explain that to them, what's happening and why this is necessary? And if your tools are broken, we had for 2 years where Apple's actual tools to keep software up to date were just totally not reliable. That just added a whole other layer of frustration to it. So we came up with all kinds of workarounds. from my own personal experience, once you came out with MDM Watchdog, it was like a night and day difference. I stopped having to worry about all that stuff. It used to be, well, why didn't this command work? And I'm looking at it and it's okay, it could be any number of issues. Let me have them restart. Let me try it again. It just felt like in general, there was always kind of something that I wasn't sure if it was going to work. Renaming a device or whatever, these things that are related to MDM specifically. And ever since MDM Watchdog came out, it's just been a feeling of a night and day difference. Like I just literally don't even think about that stuff anymore. And that includes now the new update mechanisms that are part of MDM. So all of that became much more reliable. But now I'm understanding that the MDM system updates are, of course, the old way now. So even though those are now working and everything's great there, in my opinion, now we're at DDM. So we're at Declarative Device Management updates or system updates. So can you explain philosophically MDM versus DDM, and what are some of the differences in terms of like user experience with DDM versus MDM for updates?
Yeah, exactly. I think this is really helpful and important. It's actually Apple taking on a lot more initiative in my viewpoint, because you think about it, when we were doing MDM, Apple wasn't running any MDM. They just basically said, like, actually looked at their environment. Every department that would build some component in their platform, they would be responsible for writing the MDM portion, which is why the MDM was always very differentiated. There was no like central theme to it. And a lot of what we had to do was a lot of behind the scenes stuff to make sure what's working, what's not working, how do we tweak it. With Apple Business Essentials, they got a lot more robust, and now they're taking on even more and saying, it doesn't matter. We just need to make these things work. So think about if anybody knows Puppet or Salt or Ansible, those are frameworks we've used in the server side forever, which says, hey, here's a recipe. Go and maintain that. Go push stuff in that state and maintain that state. MDM was only the servers had to know all this stuff all the time and had to tell the device, hey, do this, do that, do this, do this, and maintain that state at all times. That creates a little bit of discontinuity overall, and some that are better than others. Now what we're doing is, look, the MDM doesn't really manage the state anymore. We don't do that. We basically just hand in that recipe and say, hey, if you got any questions, we'll give you more details. And they let us know, hey, we got it. And so if you upgrade your OS and there's some policies in there that change the way your things are operating because of your OS or anything else you have in there, the device manages itself in that fashion. So it's a very different model, and most people shouldn't really care about that, I guess I would say. But it is the device inherently doing the things it's supposed to do rather than just waiting around to be told what to do.
Whereas MDM is throw the instruction over the wall and then hope for the best. And if it didn't work, the server's responsible for saying, did that work? Did you do what I said? Are you up to date? Or whatever the case may be. And if not, the server's, okay, well, it looks you're in this state and I wanted you to be in this state. Let me resend this command and then see if that works. Whereas in this case, with DDM, you're declaring what the state is you want the system to be in. Exactly. And then you know that you can trust the system. The system is, okay, I received your command and I'm going to do everything I can to achieve that state goal. And next time you check, hopefully I'll be in that state. But it's like it's like what they used to say, Apple Talk was chatty, right? Where it's like this constant conversation, it seems like DDM doesn't have to chat with the device as much. It kind of says it once and then expects the device to follow through at some point.
Correct. Yeah, and it would create infrastructure issues, especially around education, when we would have September would come along and all the schools are trying to get up and running, and their infrastructure would literally go down from all the chatter and work. So this is a much more scalable approach. It's, again, MDM is now 14 years old, so it's a pretty big change from those early days of it first coming out. The way Apple also works, like, they're not going to put more effort into MDM. They're whole hog staying very focused on this. The nice thing that we like doing, and it's very unique, nobody else really does, is everything from our monitoring, our compliance, our agents checking the device state to see that it got into that state and stays in that state. Because we never got comfortable with a profile being perfect and everything is working. You got to just make sure it goes in that state, stays in state. Yeah. So
it's interesting with DDM. Like I kind of liken it in a way, perhaps incorrectly, but like of launch daemons on a Mac. Basically the Mac is handling the when part and checking in and of itself and saying, I'm going to do this now because the state is not right. It's like where that's more like a property list and a script, DDM is more built into the architecture in a way. So it's kind of interesting to see that come full force, because it is a grand difference from just like what Joe was saying, just like throw it over the wall. And
it is. It's a huge.
I don't know why. It always cracks me up when someone says that.
No, but it literally is that, because we would send commands over, and then MDM would tell us back, okay, we got everything good. We wouldn't know what actually happened. We'd have to inspect it with our agent on the device to see what happened. You're literally throwing it over the wall. And so it was there's definitely time periods there where MDM providers were really struggling with certain things. But I think that the one thing to note, like, this is a lot of responsibility Apple's taking on. I used to say, if your agent stopped phoning home, you were out of business. Like, especially before we had MDM and we could count on that, right?
Yeah.
If our agent stopped phoning home and you guys had to redeploy manually our agent, we were out of business. And so now you're saying, Apple, like, if you screw up and you do like recurring reboots or other things like that, this is a lot of initiative they're taking on. I'm happy to see them doing it, and it's going to make a better overall experience. Hopefully, not much pain during that process, but it's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. How does Addigy's role change now that things are moving in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, things don't change a whole lot as far as, like, it definitely takes a lot less burden off of all the work we had to do to say, okay, this device is staying in this state. We don't have to send it this add, this remove, this modification. You're always trying to poke and prod the device to the state you need it to be in. Now you just be like, okay, here's a new declarative state.
So it takes away the engineering burden from you, and you don't have to carry that weight.
Agreed. And I think that's a great change for the overall market. I think we're going to see a lot of dynamics start to happen around, hey, the barrier to entry for this stuff is just not as hard as it used to be, all the black magic you had to do. But at the same token, I think people, I know this doesn't sound this is probably not the most interesting scenario, but just honestly, I think the agent is still a very, very important part of how we have to continue to operate, because that's going to be a process. It's going to take years to take a lot of the MDM stuff that's there and slowly move that to DDM. And we have to maintain both and monitor it and make sure we're not falling off the rails. And, even Microsoft stopped doing for a couple of years now, all agent development. Having a really robust agent that you can call upon to maintain things, maintain compliance and auditing is really important. So,
or to do things like even the MDM watchdog that you had to, invent, right? I mean, that relies on the agent. If you don't have an agent and you're just 100% reliant on MDM, you probably at some points, a lot of machines would have been in this state where you have to have them redeploy or something because Apple's MDM just broke.
Or even software deployment. Software deployment today has to be done with an agent. You can't do that unless you're doing apps and books. And that is imperative, but is everybody going to host all their applications and software through apps and books? I doubt it.
No. So there's some apps that still have two versions, like one that's like restrictive in apps and books, and the other is like, hey, you can get what you want if you just download it from the web. Right. So to see them go full app store I think that'd be crazy.
Yeah. Well, also, Jason, the live desktop and live terminal are both agent based, right? I mean, you need.
There's a lot of heavy lifting on the agent side. People forget our LAN caching capability to just get large amounts of data moved down a device. And so there's still a lot there. I think everybody's predicting that that's going to be dead, but the beauty is the orchestration together provides the robustness that we need, at least for the next few years.
Totally. So, I'm definitely not ready to rely on Apple creating some kind of remote management tool. I mean, I certainly don't expect them to allow us to remotely screen share with the machine through their built-in tools. I'm not even sure they want us being able to screen share with 0 clicks, like with Addigy Live Desktop, for that matter. I mean, it's a feature that I use it like almost every. I can't even say how much I use it. Yeah, I love it so much. I mean, live desktop and live terminal. So just last week, I had an issue where client tried to do an update, calls me. She's just a residential client. They have a few Macs in the home, whatever. calls me because it's on the recovery screen. I'm like, no problem, reinstall Sonoma. So we did that. She boots back up, won't finish booting basically. So I got her to boot in a safe boot, got into the system, and Addigy Live Desktop works. Addigy Live Terminal works. So I'm in there troubleshooting now. I'm in Live Desktop, and in safe mode, like ever try to remote control a machine in safe mode, it's like extremely slow. So for whatever reason, because there's no GPU acceleration or something, so it's really, really slow. So I switch over to Live Terminal, and I'm just listing directories, scanning through, like it's got to be a launch agent, whatever. I see a few that look pretty sketchy. RM, delete those 3 launch agents, reboot, it comes back up. Problem solved. I don't have to have somebody drive to the house. I don't have to have her try 16 times to like get me reconnected using Splashtop or some other third-party tool. The tools just work even in safe mode. So I was blown away at how much that time that saved me, and thinking to myself, like, I know Apple probably wishes I didn't have this tool, like this level of, access to just like a random machine that I'm not, I don't have a VPN into it, it's not, but it is managed, and so I have that tool again, thanks to the agent, thanks to Live Desktop. So I really hope that if they ever want us to move into the direction of an agentless DDM only system, that they create something like that. Like we need to be able to get our hands dirty with terminal stuff or like remote screen sharing. Anyway, big win for Addigy on that.
Wow, all the Addigy stuff was easy because you were live texting us during all that event. I mean, remotely, that's great. But I remember you sending us these messages of, what is this file? Do you guys recognize this one? Like, I can't figure out what the problem is.
Yeah, totally.
It's kind of funny to see that real time.
Oh yeah, no, there's some of the staged extensions. It's like I don't quite understand that feature when that started coming out in Monterey or something. I don't know, but like there's certain launch agents, launch daemons I'm comfortable with, but extensions and staged extensions is still a little bit of a mystery to me.
Jerry and I were both like, I don't know.
Yeah. Wasn't the culprit something from Sony?
There were 3 that I thought, maybe 2 or 3, where it's got to be one of these. And sure enough, I just killed all 3, and then that worked. So it was com.sony.pmbportable.autorun.plist, com.sony.sonyautolauncher.agent.plist, and then a WDC WD drive agent. So those were the 3 things that I thought,
the drive agent you were probably okay with.
Probably, but she didn't, it's like they didn't need it anyway. It probably should have been removed already. But anyway, these tools just make my life so much easier. And it's like how I do most of what I do.
When we're helping to support a customer and dealing with even an Apple bug, and it's really, really helpful to have those next stages down to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
So we're excited, man. We're excited where this is going to go. I think the big changes for us, hopefully, again, it's going to take a year or so, just looking at where the horizon is just managing the users and what we need for the users instead of devices. We're still very much in that device phase of things. Mm-hmm. What do we need to do for that device? It's more, we got to be managing, here's the user, here's what the user needs, and then the device is cursory to that.
So when you talk about this user-driven kind of approaches to management, can you say more about that? Is it related specifically to shared iPads, like that sort of concept, or like managed Apple IDs, having that isolation we talked about earlier? Or what's your?
Well, I mean, in general, we know like now we have platform SSO that's slowly coming out together. We're going to be able to fully log in. All of our certificates are going to be on there with passkeys. We're going to be user driven in the way we actually are using a Mac, iPhone, iPad. And now we need the systems, i.e. Addigy and everybody else, to support those users and those user driven policies. So if you think about our policies today, it's predominantly device driven. You can add in variables if you don't know, like on our identity login for Okta, Google, Microsoft. So if they're, particular OU group or groups that they use as part of, that can actually initiate them into a policy, et cetera. Right. I mean, but that's the world we really need to be in, where I feel like Apple has made some great progress with device management, but we live in a Windows world where it is very user driven and zero trust to overall providing the right experience. Starts and ends with the user. So,
it's interesting because I feel like even the users don't have this mentality yet. Like where it comes up for me is where like they're setting up MFA for Microsoft 365, let's say, and they're instructed to get the app on their usually personal phone. Like a lot of my clients don't deploy iPhones to their companies. The user has their own phone, and they're instructed by Microsoft to go get this app. So they get the app. Yeah, but then it's okay. So why am I putting this thing for my company email on my personal phone? I don't want the company to have, and there's like, they have these questions. And the idea is like, you are a person and you have a phone. It doesn't matter if it's your personal phone or your company phone, whatever it is. Microsoft needs a way to identify you are this person. That's all they really care about.
Yep.
They don't care about it's the company email or whatever. You're a person. That's what they need to verify, basically, that you're this person. So I try to explain that to clients, but I don't know like what the disconnect is, but they oftentimes have this suspicion about like the company email being on their phone. Even if they have the company email on their phone, they think, I don't want to download this app and associate it with my company. This is my phone. It's an interesting situation, but yeah, we're seeing the whole industry move more and more into that. Look at, for example, Collide user-based security, and they just got acquired by 1Password. So I think the industry sees that this is really the trend.
It has to be there, and the users will get on board with it too. I mean, I joke around. Back when I did graduate research, I was in pervasive computing. Right? Nobody knew what the hell it is. They probably don't know what it is today either. Right? It was just basically computing in a way where you don't have to think about things. It's pervasive and ubiquitous.
Right.
And so this is back in 2000. I'm pretty old. We had early machine vision, voice recognition, everything like that. When I would tell people about that, they'd be freaking out. Like, that is an invasion of privacy. That's scary. We are 10x beyond that, 100x beyond that, right?
Oh yeah.
And we've slowly gotten ourselves down that path. So, like, yeah, I get the friction with it now, but a year or two from now, the user's only going to know, hey, in order for me to get started here, I got to log in with my company credentials here. I'm not going to just get a device. What am I going to do with a device?
Yeah.
So they're going to know that kickstarts. I mean, I literally think we're going to see where, you initiate via your HR record, essentially, which then even Azure AD and Google, why do we have, we just need to actually initiate with our HR system first, and that then orchestrates everything else. So we all have to work better together, and I think there's more integration here in the future. We're doing a lot more integration capability. What you guys will be really excited about too is our webhooks, where we can trigger them off any events. Working with a lot of different providers now on an integration basis. So we're going to do a lot more. Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm thinking about all these pieces of it too. And there's the compliance piece as well. I only think about this because you mentioned the company portal app from Microsoft, which I have a hate relationship with, I guess. But with that, like, there's the piece of the compliance as well. Not just do you have the right credentials, but are you in a right IP scheme? Or do you have an up-to-date operating system, and then we'll let you in? So there are the other like security components of this as well, becoming a big picture, like what people need to do beyond just credentials, which MFA was one piece to battle that credentials piece to make sure, like Joe said, that you are this person. But then the other piece is, are you in a state that we should let you in? Is the device in a state that we should let you in?
Look, Microsoft did sort of pioneer that a bit with conditional access. But it's a 1.0 phase of things. They check 5 things, and then, hey, you're in that state. And then if you're not in compliance in their conditional access, it gets triggered off, and you don't have access to company data. Good, everybody got it. They were drinking the Kool-Aid. But then the problem is now your user's stuck. They don't even know why they're wearing a dunce hat in the corner. They got to figure out how to get back into conditional access into compliance. And so what we did with our conditional access with Microsoft is, you can now extend it to full sets of compliance and beyond some custom ones. But we'll remediate those things, get the user back into compliance, and they rarely even know that they actually fell out and were kicked out of with conditional access with Microsoft. Because transactionally, when it happened, we remediated it and got them back on and working again. So, I mean, if you guys haven't used the compliance itself and just, larger perspective, it's really easy and turnkey. Turn on CIS, turn on NIST. You just do it rules if you want, and or what most people do is they have it remediate and keep the device in that given state. But I still think we're in that 1.0 phase, because to your point exactly, it's like, I want to know, none of us in the market are there yet. Like, how many login attempts have you done? What IP are you on and at the time you're doing this? Now let's now take all this together and say, okay, you're at a different risk level now. We're gonna put you in, I love lockdown mode with at least with the iPhones, and you can do, but you can't initiate that via MDM. You got to prompt the end user and say, hey, put your device in a lockdown mode. You're in a very risky scenario right now. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
So we'll get there. I know we'll get there in the market. So.
Yeah, imagine that prompt coming to someone who already stole the device. They're not going to allow that to occur.
Right, exactly. Yeah, please lock this down. Yeah.
Please report a stolen device. No, it's me stealing it. Yes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, it's great to see the trend, though. I mean, I feel like we have come over that hump with MDM where, now we're on the other side of that. We've got some great things on the horizon, and, because we've got enough to worry about with the unknown, the unforeseen scenarios. So to be able to enforce compliance with the things that we know would help us be secure, that really should be just table stakes. I'm glad, finally that's becoming more industry standard, because it's accessible also not just to huge companies, but to smaller companies too.
It is, and look, everybody's doing a great part to helping all the Apple users out there, because they really, in my view, always need to have ACNs, MSPs helping them. I can't tell you how many devices I see that don't have file vault encryption turned on. They're not an MDM, so you can't lock wipe. They're not an Apple Business Manager, so you can't get them back in at some point either. There's some simple guardrails that we have out there now. And if you wonder, am I doing a lot as an MSP, or overall ACN MSP? That small step that we all take for granted right now is a big change in security posture for a lot of customers. And they really need that. They really, really need the standard stuff. Turn on Gatekeep, turn on File Vault, 8 things, and get myself to a much, much different security posture.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from this conversation is really there's 2 areas I think that we all should be more invested in, which is these compliance features built into Addigy and managed Apple IDs, where you have that compartmentalization, to play with that. I know it's not quite there for prime time.
Be aware of it. I wouldn't jump right into it just yet. But yeah, on the compliance side, if people are using our self-service, the end user is going to be able to see that they're in full compliance mode too. It's really transparently important for them to know, hey, I've got all these compliance rules applied. I'm all in the green, and that's a huge part to Joe, Sam, and Jerry.
Exactly. Once in a while, it's nice to get a little credit from our clients, like that. Yeah, the warm and fuzzies coming this way from them to us. So that's definitely something we're looking for. One other feature I was looking at recently and kind of interested in, Jason, and hearing your opinion about, is the smart filters. So this is where, of course, the trend now is AI. Everything, sprinkle a little AI on top of everything. But the idea of this comes up in our conversations a lot, like generating work, like finding work for us to do. Because a lot of times, you set it and forget it with a lot of this stuff, and it's, actually it works pretty well. But how can we find things to do that might be billable or just things that need to be done? So I was interested in exploring this. I know it's brand new, but smart filters to kind of find devices that may fall into certain categories of having issues, and doing that with natural language. Do I have that right?
Yeah, cool, exactly. Feature. You got to take some of the stuff with a grain of salt when we're doing this stuff, right? If you guys have ever engaged with Pseudo AI or Pseudo Insights, that site is that's Addigy's. We put it out there because we needed to understand a little bit more of what we needed to do, what the market wanted and needed, and amazing how much traction that gets every day.
Wow.
Openly for people to be able to generate scripts and the things they want. But on the filter side, it's exactly that. Find me these users, and it helps me then see what filters I can start to dig into and find. We hope we're going to be creating a lot more facts, a lot more capabilities to be able to fine tune and find more data and more items we want to look for. And then now I can create a filter set out of that and just quickly find the devices I need to find that meet that criteria. Right. So that one's a big one. We are soon coming out with a brand new revamped public software utility and third-party update utility as well too. And I don't think anybody in the market has gotten it right. I think the area that was the most advanced to be able to do this stuff was Monkey. But to run that stuff was pretty hard and advanced. So I think we found the right mixture of keeping it simple and easy and, highly advanced in what we do there, especially with the recipe of software we've got in there. So
love that.
There's a lot on the roadmap, man.
Wow. Yeah, that's a huge one to add it just almost like an afterthought. It's kind of like, it's a really important thing. We've talked to a few different open source developers about it and colleagues of ours, who are developing stuff around this. But it's really, again, one of the main things that we need is to be able to offer to our clients that we're going to keep all your stuff updated, and largely we can do that with Addigy, but there's a few different ways to do it. There's Microsoft Office updates are done one way, system updates are done another way. There's the public software deployment. There's, other ways of doing updates and things like that, rolling your own, there's Adobe software. You have to use their tool, their remote update manager tool. I mean, there's lots of like individual kind of a hodgepodge of different things. That's just the way the industry is, but it's the thing that the clients programs. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like our version of Microsoft's ad remove programs. Yeah. But it's definitely like, it's something clients think like, well, can you just update everything? And we're like, well, yeah, that's like, we're trying to, but then sometimes there's random third-party software and they're like, I thought you guys did this, and it's like, well, I didn't even know you were running that. I probably should know you're running that, but
this is a real conversation, I'm sure.
yeah. This happens, and so, to have this tool that would say, at least for like the 80% or 90%, most common or whatever, just to be able to say, I do want that to stay up to date. I do want that to stay up to date, and just have it be done would be such a lifesaver.
So we say it's a pillar for us, right? OS patching pillar. This is another pillar that has, and when I say nobody's got it right, there's the simplicity in the UI of how much you do there. There's also the coverage of the amount of software titles, as you were kind of making a reference to. But the other part is, a lot of us in those catalogs, we're referencing auto packager and other things. You've got to be really careful, even in Monkey and using auto packager. You can't just reference everything. You don't know where these are coming from, who's supplying them. So it's an injection potential for security risks.
Definitely.
So there's a lot to that stack, but I am super confident we're getting it right. Some really good people here on the team that are just focused on that and have a lot of experience around it. So
it's a big trust issue. You're right. You can't just point your updater at some public repository and hope for the best, because you don't know maybe who has access to it, who's maintaining it. We just saw this with Linux, right? With like a very fundamental tool, XY utils or whatever, tool that is like built into pretty commonly used flavors of Linux that was over the course of years infiltrated by some threat actor. And that was a very close call. And that can happen with, if you're outsourcing your updates to some random person on the internet. So
I go mad over Joe, because it's a threat vector in everything we do.
Yeah.
What third-party code utilities are we doing? And we can't do an update of those and just hope for the best. I was at the Objective by the Sea security conference in October. One of the interesting things, they talk about a lot of different ones, but one that I think about a lot too is even on the App Store, which has really tight stringent capabilities. Yeah. A lot of the free utilities on there, once people are using it and have gained confidence in it, somebody will buy it or grab it, or it's been let go of, and then they use that because iterative releases they don't really check as hard on the App Store, and then that becomes, hey, I trusted this title, but I don't even know who it is, and suddenly it's a Trojan that's running on my device. So, there's a lot of threat vectors out there, and you have to be really on top of all of it.
Totally. There's always a question of, do you want beta updates or do you want public updates on day one or day zero? Those are your options, really, even for Mac OS. I would love an option that's kind of in the middle, where you could say, I don't want to be the first person to install this, and I don't want to be the last person to install it. I definitely want to install it, but can it install automatically 1 week after release, assuming that we don't pull it in the meantime? That would be kind of just a set it and forget it type of thing for me, where I know that other people are going to be the public beta testers, basically, for that, and I'm going to hear about it from my colleagues. Yeah, Jerry's going to let me know right away.
I think Roadwork got that pretty good at the early days. If you remember, it was like a 2-week period. You either got it certain devices installed immediately, or you had 2-week delay and it would get on there, and that way you at least didn't get the latest. And yeah, I totally hear where you're going with this. It keeps I can have some light testing automatically in my environment, and other ones I know have gotten something that would have been fixed if there was an issue.
You're right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, this is great to hear about where we're headed with all this stuff, Jason. Anything else as we wrap up? Any other anything else you need to bring to our community here in this world of Addigy, MDM, DDM? Any of the
no? I mean, we got WWC in a little over a month and a half. We got to hang on tight here. It's gonna be a fun summer, but it's a dynamic environment, and we try to be really dynamic here at Addigy. But it's all thanks to our customers who help us put up with some of the challenges when we have challenges. But we together, I think we really have built something amazing. So I got a lot of appreciation for you, all the listeners. It's a testament to how we've all been working together. There's a real aspect to vendor partnerships. I think there's some people that like, I don't know, they're always trying to trash vendors. But if you try to work with the right partners to get things accomplished, we can do some amazing things for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. Well,
I agree.
You guys have shown that with your good faith kind of release of MDM Watchdog for the benefit of the community. I mean, I know you're probably proud of the efforts of your engineering team to create that. And it was like incredibly useful. Like I said, in the scope of Addigy, we got to enjoy it, but it wasn't limited to Addigy. You put it out there. And I think that's always a great thing to do, is if you can put the offer out there, and hopefully the rest of the industry reciprocates too. Hopefully the next time around, someone else invests a ton of engineering resources in whatever their problem they're seeing is, and puts it out there for all of us to enjoy also.
I'm doubtful.
Yeah,
maybe,
You never know.
I mean, at the end of the day, that was like, it was, security is so fundamental. That has to work for people. We just can't hoard that, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was great. Really, really well done. Awesome. Well, and Jason, last time I think we wrapped up with you, we were asking you for 10-year predictions. So that's a quite a time horizon. Maybe we need to limit it to like 2 to 5 years. But last time you mentioned Microsoft wants to own the device management space. Have you seen that kind of continuing to trend? Because I do see clearly. I mean, you guys have partnered with, like you were mentioning earlier, Intune and things like that. Where do you see that going? And do you have any other wildcard predictions besides that?
No, I mean, I think that trend is going to continue. They definitely, and in a lot of aspects, and how they, not just technically on a market level, to how they're operating and working with Apple. I think overall, we're just going to see a lot more platform integrations together. Not very sexy, provocative comment here. Just the fact that these centralized tools in and of themselves, if they're not, think about MDM. If I want to have my security software work on the device, it needs to work with my MDM. Like we are now becoming, whether we like it or not, or whatever else, we're a big authority for the organization, that device. And so we've got to work together with the partners to make the best experience possible. We're now like the root level utility for the device, and that's a lot of responsibility. So we're going to see a lot more of that integration, and we're leading that charge. So I think others will follow suit. But yeah, I don't know. That's 10 years out. I definitely am starting to see 5 years out. Back in the day, I couldn't see more than 6 months out. But yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
Whatever you say, Joe will hold it to you the next time we meet.
I like it. No, that was really fun. I would still hold that statement probably a year ago when we chatted about it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Partnerships is great. I think that's a good prediction, because I think, like you said, it's really necessary. So I hopefully
we're
more
only in business because of our partners and vice versa. And if you really look at that copacetically, hopefully we're helping organizations, businesses, and the end users. If we're doing that right, it is absolutely a partnership. So
nice. Cool. Awesome. Well, beautiful. Great note to end on. Thanks again, Jason, longtime guest and supporter of Cmd Ctrl Pwr. I'm so happy with everything you've done with Addigy. So thankful for Addigy. It's such a great, useful tool in my tool belt. I couldn't live without it. Couldn't run my business without it. So thanks for continuing to lead the charge over there. And maybe one day you can, fade into the background as the chief evangelist and let someone else do all the heavy lifting. But for now, we're happy you're at the helm. For sure.
Thank you. Yes, I enjoy that. We'll have more beers at a conference together.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
I'm all out right now. So.
Nice. Jason Dettbarn, founder and CEO of Addigy. Thanks for joining us on Command Control Power.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jason.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple